So I heard about the great plastic trash patches floating in the oceans. The report says that, or the way that the report it's reported is that there are five of them, and they're mostly made of plastic. And you get to see all these maps of them. Great Pacific Garbage Patch. So, I heard about these, I think, from Skywatch Media News. And immediately my brain went to, okay, how would that affect the Earth, right? Because we depend on Earth for our survival, right? So if it gets too hot or too cold or too whatever, it's a very delicate balance. And if it changes even a little bit, then the way we are now, we can't really survive here, right? So I started thinking about it, and all of a sudden I had this amazing theory kind of form in my brain. So I started thinking to myself, okay, what would these look like if they're real? And then what would they do, right? So I started kind of trying to look into it because, okay, first, if these are real, right, you would expect it to be, something like this, but you would think that people would be able to get aerial photography or satellite imagery of these patches and actually show like an aerial view of them. But what I found after I started looking into it is that there aren't any. Like, there's very little convincing imagery of these garbage patches. There's a lot of charts and graphs and people saying that it's there, but nobody's really showing them in the water, you know. And the images that are out there are suspiciously would be exactly the kind of images that a person would make if they wanted to kind of propagate a certain idea. This one looks pretty convincing. Like, this one looks pretty real, right? Like all this stuff washed up on the beach. But as far as the patches actually go, you'd think we'd have at least one picture from far away or, above that shows this huge patch, or at least one of them. But as far as I can tell, there aren't any. From what trying to find some, there are quite a few that, kind of, here's one, maybe this is one, but that's a very small area. So you see some of these kind of like, small areas or these kind of Photoshop kind of things. That's not, I really don't think that's real. And you have to start to, you start to wonder, like, is this another propaganda thing to try to get us to do, act, think, whatever, much like other things we've been told that were quite alarming, that we are destroying the earth, and then they end up to be like opposite, not true. This is the kind of thing I would expect to see, but look at this source, BBC News. And how easy is that to Photoshop? So, and then you see, like, okay, now they got these robots doing these things. The Great Ocean Cleanup has officially begun. So, you lazy humans can just keep on sitting there drinking out of your plastic bottles because we have our robots cleaning it up. So, the thing is, like, we need people to actually get real images of this stuff and really take pictures. And here's another one. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is big. Well, all they show, there's the headline, and then they show like a bottle, one bottle with some driftwood. This one could be convincing, but it's such a small area. It's a small little, isolated patch. So I don't know if it's true or not, but if it is true, if this is happening, that we have these gigantic patch, and this is ridiculous. Like, there's no way that somebody was sitting there at that moment when that turtle tried to bite that plastic cup, and the plastic cup is perfect. Like, someone just drank a beer out of a keg and dropped the cup over the side of the boat. That's ridiculous. And look who's in the headline, UN. There's no way. I don't trust that that's a real actual picture. So here's a picture of, or a drawing of where the patch is supposed to be off the coast of California, or maybe it's just comparing the size to the coast. But, oh, what's this? Unknown. What are these pictures? No. Something like this, you know, helps you to kind of believe it. That looks really real. Now, if they could just get a big picture of that overhead of a large area, it would be believable that there's these huge garbage patches. But here's my point. I don't know if they're real or not because I haven't been there to see them. In pictures like this, you know? Okay, why is all this garbage that color? Pink? Why does it look like spaghetti noodles? And why is she standing there? Why is that person would not be standing there? No reason. So, you know, and then they show stuff like this, like one plastic bag. You know, it's so hard to trust anything these days. So here's the thing though. If these patches are real, okay, and they're made up of mainly plastic, and, you know, plastic is, you know, light can pass through plastic, right? Well, then, what is a greenhouse? Well, here's one explanation. How does a greenhouse work? Well, sunlight passes through over here on the left and warms the plants. Sorry about that. And then plants and soil warm up and give out heat. Some passes through the glass, but some is trapped inside, warming up the greenhouse. Now, if you've ever been in a car on a sunny day with the windows up, it gets hot fast. You know, that's why you're not supposed to leave dogs in a car, or God forbid anybody else. But, you know, it's amazing how hot it can get inside your car, and you can roll down the windows and it's cool air outside, you know, and you know, it's like 70 degrees outside. Even in the dead of winter with below freezing temperatures, the sun can come into the car and warm it up. It's, you know, it's a greenhouse effect. Something about the rays can pass through the glass, heat up the air inside, and then the air inside stays heated up until you open a window. So that's pretty amazing, and it works. And that's why people have greenhouses. But, and we're going to need more greenhouses as temperatures get cooler and colder. We need huge, massive greenhouses. But my point is this. If you have a patch of plastic garbage floating on the ocean, and it's huge, and basically you have all of these, so if you have all of these pieces of plastic pushed together, right, and they're kind of like forming one big mass of plastic, well, what is that? It's a big, huge window. It's a big, huge mass of plastic that sun can pass through, right? So the sun's rays can pass through, heat the water, right? And then that heat stays in here because of this basically one big mass of plastic. It's a greenhouse. So, you know, maybe this is the greenhouse effect that they really were talking about, you know? Because it's like they keep giving us ways to destroy ourselves, right? They keep giving us technology and things and plastic and easy, quick foods and microwaves, ovens, and all these dollar menus. You know, I heard the actual true cost of a quarter pounder with cheese is like $250 if you actually paid everyone what they needed to be sustainable instead of enslaving and greedily stealing underhandedly from people. So, you know, they give us convenience, they give us all these things, and they give us enough rope to hang ourselves. So we use all this plastic, it turns into this huge circle of little plastic, right? And it's like kind of like floating at different depths in the water, right? Creating, basically becoming this one big window, plastic window. Well, wouldn't that be enough of a greenhouse effect for the sun's rays to go in? Then what's going to happen? All of this water right here warms, it heats, right? This is the theory that I'm proposing after, you know, hearing about this, not knowing if it's real or true or not. So if you have these big plastic windows, 5 of them around the world, and the sun's rays are going into each of these here, heating this water, heating this water, heating this water, heating right here. Then you have this water that's cool. That's going to affect and change the temperature, the water temperature, affect and change the air temperature above the water, the amount of water that evaporates, moisture, the animal and plant life, the shore, the amount of water that goes ashore, the amount of ice that melts, etc., etc. Cascading effects, that I can't even think of. But what a huge difference that would make in the ocean temperatures. So that might be global warming right there. That might be one of the ropes that they gave us to hang ourselves with. They gave us nuclear weapons, and somehow nobody pulled the trigger on those, which was a miracle if you look into some of those stories of how close they came at times. But maybe the way that, in the end, maybe the way that the history will be written is that the humans killed themselves with their plastic bottles, plastic bags, plastics. I've always been wary of plastic. Felt like it was not good or right. Good old glass, steel. Everything's plastic now. So that takes me into one more point. Regardless of how this is happening, how things are changing is one question. But the fact that things are changing is difficult to argue with. So let's take a look at this map. Oh, this is going to be such a long video. So we've got, reports that the Great Lakes are rising. We've got flooding in the Mississippi River Basin. Record days of flooding all through here. We've got snow and freezing temperature advisories over here. We've got flooding on the lake shores, flooding on the shoreline. We've got ground so wet in here that farmers have only been able to get maybe half of the crops in. So what are some other ways that the extreme weather patterns or changing weather patterns are affecting us? Well, no plant. Farmers aren't planting food, right? What about flights being canceled? Record numbers of flights being canceled. What about roads being closed, bridges being down, trucks not being able to transport things? What about corn, which the farmers can't plant, being mandated to be used as gasoline now, so that the only gas you can buy is 10% ethanol or 15% ethanol? So they can't plant corn, they can't grow corn. What does that do to gas prices? Then what does that do to the cost of getting your bread to your store? Then what does that do to everything, What about 50,000 people 2 weeks ago having their power out over here? Right, that's a report. And now, today the report is 50,000 people. Or was it? I think it was in San Antonio, or maybe yesterday, Texas. Why is it always 50,000? At least 50,000 people without power. So, things are going to get more expensive, I would say. And we should talk about, in some more videos, we should talk about contingency planning